Have you ever reached a point in life where you gave everything you had, your time, your love, your heart, and still felt like life took it all away? Have you ever prayed with tears in your eyes, wondering if God was still listening? Have you ever felt like your prayers were answered and then suddenly everything fell apart? Then this story is for you. Lord, I will not let go. You gave him to me. This is the story of a woman whose faith was tested beyond imagination. A woman who gave without asking, believed without seeing, and held on to God even when her heart was breaking. When all hope seemed gone, she discovered something powerful. God never forgets the faithful. Stay with us till the end because this miracle will remind you that even when life seems finished, God can still write a new beginning. Because what you're about to witness isn't just an ancient miracle. It's a reminder that your story is not over yet. This is the story of Elisha and the Shunammite woman. A story of love, loss, faith, and a God who still brings the dead back to life. And what lesson can this story teach us today? How can I serve you, Lord, beyond these daily tasks? Long ago in the land of Israel, in the days when kings ruled Israel, there lived a man chosen by God, Elisha the prophet. He was the servant of the Lord, the one who carried his word, his power, and his presence. Elisha had no palace, no riches, no armies. But wherever he walked, people knew the Spirit of the living God was with him. He did not travel with fine clothes or servants. But he carried something far greater, the word of the Lord. He journeyed often through the towns of Israel, teaching, comforting, and showing the mighty power of God through signs and wonders. And one day his road led him to a quiet town called Shun. There among the fields and stone houses lived a woman of great kindness. She was known and respected by all, not for her wealth or title, but for her wisdom and her generous heart. Her home was peaceful, her hands were diligent, and her spirit was full of grace and love. Yet within her heart, she often longed to do something more, something for God. One warm afternoon, as she worked in her courtyard, she looked up and saw a traveler on the dusty road. His steps were steady, his clothes worn from many journeys. But there was something different about him. There was peace in his eyes, a quiet strength that spoke of heaven. Now it happened one day that Elisha went to Shun where there was a notable woman and she persuaded him to eat some food. So it was as often as he passed by he would turn in there to eat some food. 2 Kings 4 verse 8. That man was Elisha, the prophet of God. Moved with compassion, the woman invited him into her home. She offered him fresh bread from the oven, cool water to drink, and a place to rest. And from that day onward, whenever Elisha passed through Shun, he found welcome at her table, a place of kindness, warmth, and rest. It became a home of peace for the man of God. One evening she spoke with her husband and said, "I know this man who passes by is holy, a servant of the Lord. Let us make a small upper room for him. A bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. So that whenever he comes, he will have a place of his own, a place to rest." And so it was done. The sound of hammer echoed softly through the courtyard as builders worked. And when the room was finished, it stood simple but beautiful. A small space above the house was open for cool breeze with the soft glow of an oil lamp by night. When Elisha entered the room for the first time, he touched the table and sat upon the bed. His eyes softened with gratitude. It was more than a room. It was an offering of love to God. Time passed and one day as Elisha rested there, he thought deeply about the woman's kindness. He asked his servant, "What can be done for her?" The woman had no son and her husband was old. When the woman stood again at the doorway of his room, Elisha the prophet spoke the word of the Lord. "At this season next year, you will hold a son in your arms." Her heart trembled because to her she had buried that hope long ago. She could not bear to dream it again and be disappointed because of her childlessness. But the word was spoken, and the word of God never fails. The seasons turned, the rains came and went, the fields grew green and golden, and soon the woman's womb was heavy with child. And in the appointed time, just as the prophet had said, a son was born in her house. Our miracle. A cry of new life filled the house. A sound of joy long awaited. Her husband rejoiced. Her eyes was filled with tears of gratitude. The laughter of a child now echoed through their home. Once quiet and still, truly, every smile, every giggle, every small hand clutching her body reminded her God had remembered her. The kindness of one woman had built a room for a prophet, but God in his mercy built a legacy for her. The child grew and flourished. Each year he became stronger, taller, and full of life. One bright morning, the boy ran out to the fields where his father was working with the reapers. The boy's laughter echoed across the fields. But suddenly, in the middle of his joy, he stopped. He shouted as he held his head with both hands, saying, "My head, my head." His father was confused and afraid. He immediately called for a servant to carry the child home to his mother. And so the boy was brought gently back to his mother. "My child," the mother took him gently in her arms. She sat on the floor of her home, holding him close, whispering words of comfort, pressing her face against his hair. Her hands trembled as she prayed under her breath, pleading silently for the pain to pass. But as the hours went by, the boy's body grew still. His breathing slowed, and by noon, the miracle she had once held with joy now lay lifeless in her arms. The world fell silent, her eyes filled with tears, but her spirit did not collapse. Grief gripped her heart. Yet something deeper rose within her: faith. This woman refused to believe that the story had ended. She did not prepare a funeral. She did not call her neighbors to mourn. She did not even tell her husband what had happened. Instead, she gathered her strength and made a choice that would echo through generations. She took her sorrow to God. With steady hands, she lifted her son and carried him up to the very room she had once built for the prophet Elisha. Step by step, she walked, her arms trembling under the weight of her loss, yet her faith burning stronger with each breath. She laid her son gently upon the prophet's bed. The bed that had been made for rest would now become an altar of faith. She straightened his clothes, smoothed his hair, and closed the door quietly behind her. Servants and a donkey. She went down to her husband and said, "Please send me one of the servants and a donkey. I must go quickly to the man of God and return." Her husband looked at her in confusion. "Why today?" he asked. "It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath." But she did not reveal her pain. She simply answered with words of unshakable faith, "It will be well." The servants saddled the donkey quickly. She mounted with determination and said, "Drive forward. Do not slow down unless I tell you." Dust rose behind them as they rode across the open plain. The woman leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the fear, whispering silent prayers between each breath. "I will not give up." Every moment echoed her faith. God gave this child. God can restore him again. The road was long. The sun was fierce. But she did not slow down. Her faith carried her faster than fear could follow. Far away on a mountain, the prophet Elisha sat with his servant Gehazi. He lifted his eyes and saw a figure riding swiftly toward them. "You gave me even from a distance," he recognized her. "Do not give up." It was the Shunammite woman. He turned to Gehazi and said, "Look, the Shunammite woman is coming. Run to meet her and ask her, 'Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child?'" Gehazi hurried down the hill and called out the questions, and though her heart was breaking, she answered only, "It is well." Her lips spoke calm, but her soul was in anguish. She could not speak her sorrow to anyone but the man of God. She moved forward until she reached Elisha himself. When she reached him, she fell at his feet and held to them. Her body trembled as she crying on her knees. Gehazi moved to lift her away, but Elisha raised his hand and said, "Leave her. Her soul is in deep distress, and the Lord has hidden it from me." The woman lifted her her face and poured out the pain she had kept inside all this time. "Did I ask you for a son? Did I not say, 'Do not deceive me'?" Elisha's heart broke with understanding. The promised child had died. This was no ordinary sorrow. It was a test of faith. Without hesitation, Elisha turned to Gehazi and said, "Take my staff in your hand and go quickly. Do not greet anyone along the way. And if anyone greets you, do not answer. Lay my staff upon the face of the child." Gehazi took the prophet's staff and ran as fast as his feet could carry him. But the mother remained where she walked. She clung to Elisha's feet and said in her heart, "I will not leave him until he comes with me." Her faith burned like fire, unyielding, unstoppable. Elisha saw the depth of her devotion, the fierce trust that refused to let go, and he rose to his feet, saying, "I will go with you." Meanwhile, Gehazi reached the house in Shunem. He entered to the prophet's room and laid the staff upon the boy's face. He waited. The house was silent. No breath, no movement, no sign of life. The child did not awaken. Gehazi turned and ran back down the road to meet Elisha and the woman. When he found them, his voice was heavy with sorrow as he said, "The child has not awakened." The mother said nothing. Her faith was unbroken. She simply looked toward Elisha, her eyes speaking with words that could not be heard. "Do not deceive. I still believe." And Elisha understood. He knew the journey was not over. God was about to reveal his power once again. "We will go to him." At last they reached the house in Shunem. The Shunammite woman hurried ahead. Elisha stepped into the quiet courtyard. The air felt heavy still as if all of creation was holding its breath. The woman pointed toward the stairs. Without a word, Elisha nodded and began to climb. Elisha placed his hand upon the door. For a moment, he closed his eyes in prayer, then pushed it open. The room was dim, lit only by narrow rays of sunlight spilling through a small window. On the bed lay the child, dressed neatly by his mother's trembling hands. His face was pale. "God, I pray." His stillness filled the room with sorrow. "Turn to him. Elisha entered quietly and closed the door behind him. The world outside disappeared. No sound, no movement, only the prophet, the boy, and the presence of the Lord. He walked slowly to the bed, knelt beside it, and looked upon the boy. Grief across his face, but so did faith, and he whispered softly, "O Lord, you gave this child as a promise, now look upon him again. Stretch out your hand. Show your mercy. Let your power bring life." Then Elisha rose and stretched himself out upon the child, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, hands to hands, as though he were pleading with heaven to bridge the distance between life and death. He stayed there in silent prayer, pouring out his heart to God. Moments passed. Then slowly, warmth began to return to the child's flesh. It was faint, but real, the first whisper of life. Yet still he did not wake. Elisha stood and began pacing the room, his hands lifted in earnest prayer. His voice trembled as he cried, "Lord of hosts, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, hear me. Restore this child for the sake of his mother's faith and for the glory of your name." Then he returned to the bed once more and stretched himself over the boy again. This time the child's body shuddered and suddenly a sound broke through the stillness. The boy sneezed once, twice, then again and again, 7 times in all until and he called Gehazi and said, "Call this Shunammite woman." So he called her. And when she came into him, he said, "Pick up your son." So she went in, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground. Then she picked up her son and went out. Elisha purifies the pot of stew. 2 Kings 4 verses 36 to 37. Carrying the child, he went to the door and called for Gehazi. "Call the Shunammite," he said. Gehazi hurried down the stairs and moments later the mother came running, her hands trembling, her heart beating fast, and there at the top of the stairs she saw him, her son, alive on the prophet bedside beside the prophet. She let out a cry and rushed forward. The boy ran into her arms. She fell to her knees before Elisha, her face to the floor, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My Lord, my God, thank you," she cried. She held her son close, rocking him as her sobs turned into laughter. She had refused to give up. She'd clung to hope when all seemed lost, and God rewarded her faith with a miracle that would never be forgotten. From that day, the story of the Shunammite woman became a testimony, not of human strength, but of divine faithfulness. Her faith, her story still whispers to every heart that has faced loss. Do not give up. Do not let go. Not even in your darkest hour. God is still near. She believed. She pressed on. She held on to the man of God until the miracle came. God can write a new beginning in every life. This story of Elisha and the Shunammite woman is more than just history. It is a reminder to us all. God is faithful. What he promises, he fulfills. Even when it seems impossible, our miracle. The Shunammite woman never gave up, never let go, never stopped believing that God could still work a miracle her life. Because she welcomed Elisha and cared for him, she received blessings beyond her imagination. If this story of faith touched your heart today, don't just keep it to yourself, share it. Let someone else be reminded that God still works miracles when we refuse to give up.